संसारधावा नललीधलोक त्राणाय कारुण्य गणगणात्वम्
संसारधावा नललीधलोक त्राणाय कारुण्य गणगणात्वम्
प्राप्तस्य कल्याण गुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
प्राप्तस्य कल्याण गुणार्णवस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
महाप्रभु कीर्तन नित्य गीता वादित्र्यमाद्यान् मनसुरसेना
महाप्रभु कीर्तन नित्य गीता वादित्रमाद्यान् मनसुरसेना
रोमाञ्चकम्पा श्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
रोमाञ्चकम्पा श्रुतरङ्गभाजो वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यनानां शृङ्गारतन्मन्दिरमार्जनादो
श्रीविग्रहाराधन नित्यनानां
शृङ्गारतन्मन्दिरमार्जनादो युक्तस्य भक्तां च नियुञ्जतोऽपि वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
युक्तस्य भक्तां च नियुञ्जतोऽपि
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसादो स्वादन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गम्
चतुर्विधा श्री भगवत्प्रसादो स्वादन्न तृप्तान् हरिभक्तसङ्गम्
कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
कृत्वैव तृप्तिं भजत सदैव वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् वन्दे गुरो
श्रीचरणारविन्दम् श्रीराधिका माधवयोरपारा माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्नाम्
श्रीराधिका माधवयरपर माधुर्यलीला गुणरूपनाम्ना
प्रतीक्षणा स्वाधनलोलुपस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
प्रतीक्षणा सदनलरूपस वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
निकुञ्जयूनो रतिकेलिसीद्यै यायालिबीर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया
निकुञ्जयूनो
रतिकेलिसीद्यै यायालिबीर्युक्तिरपेक्षणीया तत्रादिदाक्षात् अतिवल्लभस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
साक्षादरीत्वेन समस्तशास्त्रैर्युक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः
सख्याधरीर्वेण समस्तशास्त्रे
युक्तस्तथा भाव्यत एव सद्भिः किन्तु प्रभोया प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
किन्तु प्रभोज प्रिय एव तस्य वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसादात् भगवत्प्रसादो यस्य प्रसादात् न गति कुतोऽपि
यस्य प्रसाद भगवत्प्रसाद यस्य प्रसाद न गति कुतोऽपि
ध्यायं स्तुवं तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यान् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
ध्यायं स्तुवं तस्य यशस्त्रीसन्ध्यान् वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम् 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 वन्दे गुरो श्रीचरणारविन्दम्
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमति भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पततारि सतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्त वृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण
चैतन्य
प्रभु नित्यानंद
नित्यानंद
अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्त
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्त वृंद
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद
नित्यानंद
श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसदि गौर भक्त
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम
हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namah.
Haraya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namah.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Krishnavaya Namah.
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudanam.
Gopal Govinda Ram Shri Madhusudanam.
Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohanam.
Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan.
Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita.
Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita.
Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita.
Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita.
Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha.
Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha.
Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha.
Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha.
Hari Haraya Nama Krishna Yadavaya Namah.
Haraya Namah, Krishna Yadavaya Namah.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah.
Yadavaya Madhavaya Keshavaya Namah.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama.
Hare Hare. जो विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद दिव्य ग्रेस ऐसी भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की
जय।
जो विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिव्राजक आचार्य अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद दिव्य ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती गोस्वामी महाराज श्रील प्रभुपाद की
जय।
अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की
जय।
नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर की
जय।
प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद की
जय।
श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपनाथ श्यामचंद्र राधा कुंड गिरि गोवर्धन की श्री वृंदावन धाम मथुरा धाम की मायपुर धाम नवदीप धाम की पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की श्री अयोध्या धाम की गंगामय की यमुनामय की जय तुलसी महारानी की जय भक्ति देवी की जय कलियुग पावन हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय निताय गौर प्रेमानंद all glories to some blue all glories to some blue all glories to all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga all glories to Srila Prabhupada ki
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Namaste Narasimhaya.
Prahlada Ladadaine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha.
Hiranyakashipu Vaksha.
Shilatankanakalaye.
Shilatankanakalaye.
ईतो नरसिम्हा परतो नरसिम्हा यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिम्हा
जतो जतो जामि ततो निसिंहा
बहिर्नरसिम्हा हृदये नरसिम्हा
निसिंहा हृदये निसिंहा
बहिर्नरसिम्हा हृदये नरसिम्हा
निसिंहा हृदये निसिंहा
नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे
नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे
नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे
नरसिंहमदिं शरणं प्रपदे
तव करकमलवरे नखाम् अद्भुतशृङ्गार दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवदिता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
अवकर कमल बरे नका अद्भुत सिंहं दलिता हिरण्यकशिपु तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
केशवदेता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
जय केशवदेता नरहरिरूपा जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे जय जगदीश हरे
जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव
जय निसिंहरे जय निसिंहरे जय निसिंहरे जय निसिंहरे
जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज
जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज
निदाय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल
भक्ति युक्त विनाशक लक्ष्मीपति नरसिंहदेव भगवान की
जय
भक्त शिरोमणि प्रहलाद महाराज की
जय श्री वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः वृंदाई तुलसी देवाई प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रारे देवी सतवताय नमो नमः वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय केशव सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदे देवी शतवताय नमो नमः। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय।
नमो नमः दुलासी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण
प्रेयसी
नमो नमः।
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः
तुलसी कृष्ण प्रेयसी नमो नमः।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो अभिलाषी।
जे तुम्हार शरण लो तारा वांछा पूर्ण हो।
तुम्हार शरण लो तारा वांछा पूर्ण।
कृपा कोरी करो तारे वृंदावनवासी
तुम्हें कृपा करे करतारे वृंदावनवासी।
मोरा विलास विलास कुंज दियो वास।
मोरा विलास कुंज दियावा।
नायने हेरिवो सदा युगल रूप राशि।
अमी नायने रेव सदा युगल रूप राशि।
हे निवेदन दारो शकीरनु घट करो।
निवेदन दर सकीरनु गत करो।
हे निवेदन दारो शकीरनु घट करो।
निवेदन दर सकीरनु गत करो।
सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी।
सेवा यदि करो दिए करो निज दासी।
सेवाधिकार दिए करो निज दासी।
सेवा यदि करो दिए करो निज दासी।
दीन कृष्ण दास को ये नमो रहो।
कृष्ण दास को नमो रहो।
दीन कृष्ण दास को ये नमो रहो।
कृष्ण दास को नमो रहो।
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदय नबासी।
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदाय नवासी।
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदय नबासी।
श्री राधा गोविंद प्रेम सदाय नवासी।
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्महत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रणशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे
हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Jaya Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi Vrinda Devi Jaya Vrinda Devi
Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi, Jaya Vrinda Devi.
Jaya Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani Tulsi Maharani Jaya Tulsi Maharani
Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi Maharani, Jaya Tulsi
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaura Hari Bol
Nitai Gaura Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura Hari Bol. Shri Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindai Tulasi Debai Priyai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Vrindayai Tulasi Devai Priyayai Kesava Satya Vishnu Bhakti Prade Devi Satavatai Namo Namaha. Srimati Tulasi Maharani Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. O Tulasi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire to obtain the service of Shri Shri Radha and Krishna. We will take shelter of you as wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon whom you make me resident in Vrindavan. My desire is that you also give me a residence in the groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastime of Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me the photo of God's names as you watch. Please give me the privilege of the gospel service and make me on maid servant. Please very full and Lord who serve Krishna praise. May I always sing Lord Shri Shri Radha, Govind, Shri Mati Tulasi Maharani, Vrinda Devi Ki Jai. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Chaito Ratmanam Bhavamadavanam Shreyakar Vachandika Vidanam Vidyavadu Jivanam Ananda Buddhivatnanam Dipadam Purnamrita Shadanam Sarvatmasnam Puram Paravijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam Nam Namakari Bhauta Nija Sarva Shaktis Tatra Pita Niyamitam Shmaranena Kala Pita Dushi Tava Kripaya Bhagavan Mamati Good Aiva Midrisham Here Matranastastu Saivanapada Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Kam Ki Jai. Namo Mahabharanaya, Krishna Prema Pradaya Krishnaya, Krishna Chaitanya, Namni Gopishya. Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust that made for you, and extinguishes the fire of conditional life, repeated birth and death. The Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the grace of the benediction moment. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully test the nectar for which we're always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings. And thus you have hundreds of millions of names like Krishna and Govinda. In these transcendental names you have invested all your transcendental energies. There is not even hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness you enable us to easily approach you by your holy names. But I'm so unfortunate that I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower and strolling the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your causeless devotion and service birth after birth. O son of Maharaj Nanda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor. Yet somehow or other I'm falling in this ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? When will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end in the recitation of your name? O Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he sure remains so, even if sandals me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me. He is completely free to do anything and everything, but he's always my worshipful Lord unconditionally. Shri 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 Kyastakam Ki Jai. Namo Mahavadana Shri.
Krishna Chaitanya Namne Guru Tushe Namo Namaha.
The act and offenses in matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that must be avoided, they are as follows. 1. Blaspheme, devotees who dedicate their life for propagating the holy name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of demigods and Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. Blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. Consider the glory of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination's sake, to give some interpretation of the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit simple activities on strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are often Vedas as fruitive activity, karma kanda. 9. To instruct the fearless person of the glories of the holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting the holy names and to maintain material attachments, even if understanding so many instructions on this matter. It also an offense in the tangible chanting. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must carefully guard against 10 offenses
in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema.
Now let us offer our humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnavas, the devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees, they can fulfill the desires of everyone,
and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpatarabhyascha, kripa sindhubhyeva patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamani Namaste Saraswati Deve Guruvani Pacharini Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paskati Resutani. Srimad Bhagavatam Grantharaj Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Janmadhyasya Yato Nivayad Itaratascha Teswa Vigyaswarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adhikavaye Muyanti Atsureha Tejo Varim Vedam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Misha Damnasvena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva.
O my Lord Shri Krishna, Son of Vasudeva.
O all-pervading personality of God.
O all-pervading personality of God.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I offer my respectful obeisances unto you.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because he is the absolute truth.
I meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna because the absolute
and
truth.
the primeval cause of all causes.
And the primeval cause
of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universe.
Of the creation, sustenance, and destruction of the manifested universe.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond.
And he is independent because there is no other cause beyond.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji.
It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart
the original
of
living being.
The original living being.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion.
By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed
as one is bewildered by the illusory representation.
As one is bewildered by the illusory representation.
Of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
Of water seen on fire or land seen on water.
Only because of him do the material universes.
Only because of him do the material universes.
Temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature.
Temporarily manifested by the reaction of the three modes of nature.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
Appear factual, although they are unreal.
I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Shri Krishna.
I therefore meditate upon Lord Shri Krishna.
Who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode.
Whose eternal existence in the transcendental
which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world.
Which is forever free from the illusory representation
I
of the
meditate
material
upon him, for he is the absolute truth.
And meditate upon him, for he is the absolute
Dharma
truth.
Projita Kaitravocha.
Dharma Pujita Kaikala.
Paramo Nimatsaranam Sitam.
Paramo Nimashranam.
Vedyam Vastavamatra Vastu.
Vedyam Vastavamashtra
Shivadam Tapatrayon Bhuvimam.
Shivadam Tapo.
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni Krite.
Shrimad Bhagavate Mahamuni.
Kim va Purer Ishwaraha.
Kim va Purer Ishwaraha.
Sadyo Hridaya Varudyate Tra.
Sadyo Hridaya Varudyate Tra.
Priti Bahi Sususapistakshana.
Priti Bahi Sususapistakshana.
Completely rejecting all religious activities which are materially motivated.
completely rejecting all religious activity which are
This
material.
Bhagavata Purana propounds the highest truth,
This Bhagavad Purana propounds the highest truth,
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in heart.
which is understandable by those devotees who are fully pure in
The
heart.
highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all.
The highest truth is the reality distinguished from religion for the welfare
Such
of all.
truth uproots the threefold miseries.
Such a truth uproots the threefold
This
miseries.
beautiful Bhagavatam compiled by the great sage Vyasadeva in its maturity
This beautiful Bhagavatam compiled with great sage Vyasadeva's
is
maturity.
sufficient in itself for God realization.
It's sufficient itself for God to
What is the
realization.
need of any other
What
scripture?
is the need of the other scripture?
As soon as one attentively and submissively hears the message of
As soon
Bhagavatam,
as one attentive and submissively hears the message of
by
Bhagavatam,
this culture of knowledge,
by this culture of
the
knowledge,
Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
the Supreme Lord is established within his heart.
Nigama kalpataro galitam phalam,
Nigama kalpataror galitam.
sukhamukad amrita dravya samyutam,
Shukamukadamrita dravasam.
pibata Bhagavatam rasam alayam,
Pibata Bhagavatam
muhur
rasamayam.
aho raska bhuvibhavakaha.
Mora hora sikha
O expert and thoughtful men, relish Srimad Bhagavatam,
O expert and thoughtful men, relish my
the
Bhagavatam.
mature fruit of the desired true Vedic literatures.
The mature fruit of the desired truth.
It emanated from the lips of C. Sukadeva Goswami.
It emanated from the lips of Sishukadeva.
Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful,
Therefore, this fruit has become even more
although its nectarine juice was already relishable for all,
tasteful, although its nectarine juice was all relishable,
including liberated souls.
including liberated souls.
Shinvatam Swatkata Krishna,
Shravantam Swakata Krishna.
Punya Shravana Kirtana,
Punya Shravana Kirtana.
Hridyantak Stohi Badrani,
Vidyantasto Yabadnani.
Vidunati Srihitsatam.
Vidunati Suritsatam.
To hear about Krishna from Vedic
To
literatures,
hear about Krishna from the very glory,
or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita,
or to hear from him directly through the Bible,
is itself righteous
it
activity.
is self-righteous.
And for one who hears about Krishna,
And from who hears about Krishna,
Lord Krishna, who's dwelling in everyone's heart,
Lord Krishna is dwelling within everyone's
acts
heart,
as a best wishing friend
acts as the best
and
wishing
purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of
and
him.
purifies the body, constantly engages
Nasta
in
presu abhadresu
Nasta Praisha Bhadeshu
nityam bhagavata sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata
bhagavati uttama sloke
Bhagavati Uttama Shloke
bhaktir bhavati naistaki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Nasti.
In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge.
In this way, the body naturally develops dormant
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam
and from the
and
devotees,
from the
he
devotees,
becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord.
he becomes fixed in devotional service of the Lord.
Tadarajastumo bhava
Tadarajastamo bhava
kamaloba dayaschaye
Kamalobhadaya
cheta itaranabhidam
Chetaiterana
stvam sattve prasidhati.
Stham Sattve Prasad.
By development of devotional service,
By development of devotional
one
service,
becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance,
one becomes free from the modes of passion,
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
and thus material lust and avarice are diminished.
Evam prasana manaso
Evam prasanamanas
bhagavat bhakti yogitaha
Bhagavat Bhakti
bhagavat
Yogata
tattva vijnanam
Bhagavat Tattva Vijnana
bhakti sangasya jayate.
Mukta Sangasya Jayate.
When these impurities are wiped away,
When these impurities are wiped
the
away,
candidate remains steady in his position of pure
the
goodness,
candidate remains steady in his position of
becomes
pure goodness,
enlivened by devotional service,
becomes alive by devotional
and
service,
understands the science of God perfectly.
and understands the sense of God perfectly.
Vidyate hridaya grantis,
Vidyate Hridaya
chidyante
Grantis,
sarvasamsaya,
Chidyante Sarva Samsaya,
shiyante cha shikarmani,
Chidyante
krista
Chakarmani,
evat manishvare.
Justa Evatmani Ishvara.
Thus, Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection
Thus the Bhakti Yoga serves the hardness of material
and enables one to come at once to the stage of a samsaya on the samapram,
and enables one to come at once to the stage of Samsham Shema
understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth Personality of Godhead.
understanding of the supreme absolute true personality of God.
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness
Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotees in Krishna consciousness
can one understand the science of Krishna.
can one understand the science of
Shri Shri
Krishna.
Guru Vastika prayers ki jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it.
The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy, just as the cloud pours water on the forest fire to extinguish it.
So the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
So the spiritual master delivers the material afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spirit master who is in the ocean of species
Chanting holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments.
Chanting holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical
The
instruments.
spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
The spiritual master is also gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu,
because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his
because
mind.
he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind.
Sometimes his hair stands on end.
Sometimes his hair stands on
He
end.
feels quivering in his body.
He feels quivering in his
And
body.
tears flow from his eyes like waves.
And tears flow from his eye like
I offer my
waves.
respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual
I
master.
offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master.
The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Sri Sri Radha and Krishna.
The spiritual master is always engaged in his temple worship, Shri Shri Radha and
He
Krishna.
also engages his disciples in such worship.
He also engages his disciples in such
They
worship.
dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments,
They dress the deities in beautiful dress and ornaments,
clean their temple,
clean their temple,
and perform other similar worship of the Lord.
and perform other similar
I
worship.
offer my
to the Lord.
respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a
The
spiritual
spiritual
master.
master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food,
The spiritual master always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious
analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked.
food. And that is that which is lectured, drank, and
When the
sang.
spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasad,
When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasad,
he is satisfied.
he is
I
satisfied.
offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava.
The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastime of Radhika Madhava
And their qualities, names, and form.
and the qualities, names, and
The
form.
spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment.
I offer my respectful obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a
The
spiritual
spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan.
The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis who in different time make different tasteful arrangement for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs in the groves and Vrindavan.
I offer my most humble obeisance unto Lotus Feet as such a spiritual master.
I offer my respectful obeisance to lotus feet of such a spiritual
I
master.
offer my most humble obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master.
I offer my obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a
I
spiritual
offer my most humble obeisances unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual
I
master.
offer my most humble obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual
The
master.
spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the most confidential servitor of the Lord.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities.
Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna.
Therefore, I offer my humble obeisance unto lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hare Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the Lotus Feet of my spiritual master.
At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisance to lotus feet of my spiritual
Shri
master.
Brahma Samhita Ki Jai. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchitananda Vigraha Anadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam.
Ishvara Parama Krishna Sakchit Ananda Vigraha Anadir Adi Govinda Sarvakarana Karana.
Chintamani Prakara Satma Sukalpa Vriksha.
Chintamani Prakada Sadma Sukalpa Vriksha.
Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam.
Lakshya Vritesi Surabhira Vipalayantam.
Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambhrama Sevyamanam.
Lakshmi Sahasra Shata Sambrahma Sevyamanam.
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Venam Kvalantam Aravinda Dalayataksam.
Venum Vanantam Aravinda Dayalataksham.
Parhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam.
Haram Vatam Asitam Buddha Sundaram.
Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobham.
Kandarpakoti Kamaniya Vishesha Shobham.
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Alola Chandra Kala Sadvanamalya Vamsi.
Alula Chandra Kala Sarvanamalya Vamsi.
Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kala Vilasam.
Ranangadam Pranayakiri Kala Vilasam.
Shyamam Trivangala Litani Taprakasam.
Syamam Trivangalalitam Niyata Prakasam.
Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami.
Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti.
Angani Yasha Sakalindriya Vritti manti.
Pasyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti.
Pasyanti panti kalayanti chiram jaganti.
Ananda chinmaya sadujvala vigrahasya.
Ananda chinmaya sadujjala vigrahasya.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Advaitam achyutam anadim ananta rupam.
Advaitam achyutam anadim ananta
Adyam
rupam.
purana purusham navayovanam cha.
Adyam purana purusham navajovanam cha.
Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto.
Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Pantastu koti satavatsara sampragamyo.
Pantastu koti satavatsara sampragamyo.
Vayoratapi manaso muni pungamanam.
Vayoratapi manaso muni pungavanam.
Sopyasti yat prapadasim yavichintya tatpe.
Sopyasya pradasimya vichincha tatte.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Ekopya sora chaitam jagadanda kotim.
Ekopya sura chajitum jagananta kuti.
Yad shakti rasti jagadanda chaya yadanta.
Yashakti rasti jagananta chaya jaranta.
Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam.
Adantarasta paramanu chayantarastam.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham
Yad
bhajami.
bhava bhavita diyo manajastataiva.
Bhavita diyo manujastataiva.
Samprapya rupa mahima sanayana bhusaha.
Samprapya rupa mahima sanayana bhusha.
Shuktaryameva nigama pratitaistuvanti.
Shuktiryameva nigama pratitaistutam.
Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Ananda chinmaya rasat pratibhavitabis.
Ananda chimya rasat pratibhavitabis.
Tabirya eva nijarupataya kalabi. Goloka eva nivasat akilatma bhuta.
Goloka eva nivasati akilatma bhuto.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Emam janas churita bhakti vilochanena.
Premanjana churita bhakti vilochanena.
Santak sadeva hridayesu vilokayanti.
Santa sadeva hridayeshu vilokayanti.
Yam shama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam.
Yam syama sundaram achintya gunaswarupam.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Ramadi murti sukalani amena tistam.
Ramadi murti sukalani amena tistam.
Nanavatar makarod bhuvanesu kintu.
Nanavatara makaroti bhuvaneshu kintu.
Krishna swayam samabhavat paramam pumamyo.
Krishna swayam samabhavat paramapumamyo.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadanda kotim.
Yasha prabhava prabhato jagadanta kuti.
Kotishvasesu vasudadi vibhuti vinam.
Kotya swashesha vasudadu vibhuti
Tad
vinam.
brahma niskalam anantam ashesha bhutam.
Tad brahma niskalam anantam ashesha
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Maya hiyasya jagadanda satani sute.
Maya iyasya jagadanta satani sute.
Traigunyatad vishaya veda vitayamanam.
Trigunatar vishaya veda vitayamana.
Sattvam pralambi parasattvam visuddha sattvam.
Sattva valambi parasattvam visuddha sattvam.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Ananda chinmaya rasat mantaya manasu.
Anand chinmaya rasatam madhuchamanasu.
Ya praninam pratifulam smaratam upetya.
Ya praninam pratipalam smaratam upetya.
Ilayatena bhuvanani jayaya jasram.
Ilayitena bhuvani jatyantu shastram.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Golokanamni nichatamni talecha tasya.
Golokanamni nichatamni talecha tesya.
Devi mahesha haridama suteshu tesu.
Devi mahesha haridama shuteshu teshu.
Tete prabhava nichaya vihitascha yena.
Tete prabhava nichaya vihitascha yena.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham bhajami.
Govindam adi purusham tamaham
Shisti Stiti Pralaya Sadhava Sakti Reka
Stiti Praya Sadhana Shakti
Jayeva Yasya Bhuvanani Vibharti Durga
Jayeva Yasha Bhuvanani Vibhakti Durga
Chanurupam Apiyasya Chachesta Tesa
Icharupa Mapiyasha Chachista
Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Shiram Yata Dadidi Vikara Vishesha Yoga
Kiram Yata Dadivikara Vishesha Yoga
Sanjayate Nahitata Pritakasti Heto
Sanjayate Naitata Pritakasti Hetu
Ya Sambhutam Apitata Samupaiti Karyat
Yashambudam Apitata Samupaiti Karyat
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Deeparchireva Hitasantam Abhyupetya
Dipachir Eva Nisatanam Ambupipetya
Deepayate Rivita Hetu Samanu Dharma
Dipayate Vivritahesu Samana Dharma
Yastadrigeva Hicha Vishnu Taya Vibhati
Yastadrigeva Ivasa Vishnutaya
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Yakarna Narnava Jale Bhajati Sma Yoga
Yakaranannava Jale Vivajatma Yoga
Vedram Ananta Jagananda Saroma Kupa
Nidram Ananta Jagananta Saroma Kupa
Adhara Shakti Avalambya Param Swamurtim
Andara Shakti Malavandya Param Samurti
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Govindam Adi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, verse number 9. Payur Yamasya Mitrasya Parimokshasya Narada Himsaya Niritir Mityur Nirayasya Gudam Smita. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death, Mitra, and the evacuating hole, and the rectum of the hole. And the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, and hell, etc. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So this is a very, very interesting purport. And it's talking about envy, misfortune, death, and hell. So, and then this is further explained in Srimad in Bhagavad Gita, 16th chapter, 18th verse. Ahankara balam darpam kamam krodam samsritaha mam atma paradehesu padrish santo Vyasuyakaha. Bewildered by false ego, strength, pride, lust, and anger, the demons become envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is situated in their own bodies and in the bodies of others, and blaspheme against the real religion. This is a good definition of, I would say, over 90% of the population of this world. That's a lot of people that have these really bad qualities. And the purport, Prabhupada explains a very interesting point that we should definitely think about today deeply. He says, a demoniac person, being always against God's supremacy, does not like to believe in the scriptures. He is envious of both the scriptures and the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is caused by his so-called prestige and his accumulation of wealth and strength. He does not know that the present life is a preparation for the next life. Not knowing this, he is actually envious of his own self as well as of others. He commits violence on other bodies and on his own. He does not care for the supreme control of the personality of Godhead because he has no knowledge. Being envious of the scriptures and of the supreme personality of Godhead, he puts forward false arguments against the existence of God and denies the scriptural authority. He thinks himself independent and powerful in every action. He thinks that since no one can equal him in strength, power, or wealth, he can act in any way and no one can stop him. If he has an enemy who might check the advancement of his sensual activities, he makes plans to cut him down by his own power. So, now we understand the origin of enviousness among people. Everything begins from the Lord. So, we originally were all with Krishna in the spiritual world. But somehow or other, a small percentage of the innumerable population in the spiritual world became envious of Krishna. That's us. We're all criminals. Just like during the British Empire, all the criminals in England were sent to Australia. So everyone who's Australian today, native or not native, but whose family goes back 6, 7 generations, they're all children of criminals. That's why Australia is a perfect example of sense gratification. Everybody is engaged in sense gratification there because they're all descendants of criminals. And they have this proclivity to engage in sense gratification. Well, that's all over the world now, not only Australia. So we are like the Australian criminals that were banished from England and sent there to this island surrounded by the ocean on 4 sides. So we have all been banished to the material world, and our soul is covered by a material body, which is completely controlled by the laws of nature. Although our soul is eternal, it doesn't have to reproduce, it doesn't have to eat, it doesn't have to sleep, it doesn't have to do anything, actually. It is completely free. We become entangled through the false ego to think that we are subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. These things are normal, although we don't like them. And that we think we're independent, but actually we're controlled completely by the laws of nature and so forth. So when we become envious of the Lord, and that's the reason why we fell down to this material world, and we're given a chance to act like little lords ourselves in the material world by aggrandizement, accumulating wealth, prestige, fame, and making many victims for our sense gratification, having many victims that we exploit for sense gratification. All these things are indicative of demons, of asuras. In a sense, we are all asuras. It's just different degrees of being asuric, that's all. Because we all rejected Krishna voluntarily by misuse of our limited free will. And therefore we're placed in the material world with our soul being covered by a material body, which completely bewilders us. So 98 to 99% of the people in the world identify with that false body. And they think this body is my identity, where it's not. It's completely false. An illusion means believing something that was never true. It's not you believe something that was partially true. You believe something that was never true. Like, for example, many people believe, I am this body. I am, a Bengali, a West Bengali, not an East Bengali, or a Bangladeshi. Or I am a Kashmiri, but not a Hindu Kashmiri. I am a Muslim Kashmiri. Or the Hindu Kashmiri says, I am Kashmiri, but not a Muslim Kashmiri. I'm a Hindu Kashmiri. So we see all these false bodily identifications are indication of complete bewilderment. And their whole life, people go around believing, I am this, I am that. Like someone might be born in India, and they come to America and get indoctrinated by false knowledge, and all of a sudden they believe that they are a transvestite or homosexual or this thing or that thing, or they believe they're a Western Washingtonian or Eastern Washingtonian or whatever. There's all these crazy ideas of things that were never true, but they accept as being true. So people go through, you can summarize material life as a constant search for a self-identity. And the perfect example is the baseball hat. When a kid first goes to school, the baseball hat has the visor in front like this. And then after some time in school, he comes home with the baseball hat on backwards. And then after some time, the baseball hat is onto one side like this. And then after a little while, the baseball hat is tilted up and almost falling off his head and somewhat diagonal. Now, I was once giving a lecture in one of these high schools here, and I asked the kids, I said, does anyone know what each position of the baseball hat means? So everybody looked at each other, they were sort of snickering, and then one guy raised his hand. He said, yes, I know. I said, what does it mean? He said, well, when it's like this, it means someone is straight. They're following rules. And then when it goes like this, that means they refuse to follow the rules anymore. And when it goes like this, that means they're a gangster rapper. And when it goes like that, that means they're a dork. A dork is a slang word in English, means a complete idiot. So he knew what the four positions of the baseball hat meant. And each one of those positions is a different identity or self-identity. Therefore, you can summarize material life as a search for self-identity. And usually, like in the case of the baseball hat, each one of those self-identities is wrong because it's based on the body. It's only when the person is fortunate enough to come in contact with genuine devotees that they can get it right. That I am the eternal servant of Krishna. That's who I am. But very few people come to that realization. How do we know that? Manusyanam sahasresu kaschit jati siddhaye jatam api siddhanam kaschit mam veti tattvataha. So this is the third chapter of Bhagavad Gita, and it says, no, it's not the seventh chapter, I'm sorry. And it says, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. And of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So that means many thousands of people will try for understanding who they are. And out of those who actually understand who they are, very, very few of them, meaning a few out of millions, will actually become genuine devotees. So it's very rare to become a genuine devotee. Even if you become self-realized, in other words, you understand I'm not this body, I'm an eternal soul, that still is not enough to become a genuine devotee. You have to go further than that. Further than that means complete dependence on Krishna. So we quoted that verse, Anukulyasya Sankalpa Patikulyasya Rajanam Raksisya Titi Vishvaso, which means considering Krishna as one's protector and not considering anyone else as one's protector. Having complete faith that Krishna will protect me and being completely dependent on the mercy of Krishna. So that there are very few people that actually get to that point. There are a certain number of people who become self-realized. They understand I'm not this body, I'm the spirit soul. But to go from that to absolute dependence on the mercy of Krishna, is a very, very rare thing. And not many people achieve that perfection. So this is explained in Srimad Bhagavatam in great detail. In the first canto, 8th chapter, 27th verse, it says, in the purport, it says, advancement of material vision or material civilization is a great stumbling block for spiritual advancement. So therefore, everything we sing now, all these nice buildings and air conditioning and electric lights and nice cars and nice roads and all these things, you know, and Amazon Prime, and you know, you can buy anything you want, and it's delivered to your door rather quickly. And the other day, well, no, one time I was in Seattle, and I saw this old couple standing in front of a storefront with a big window, and they were going like this and pointing like that, and whispering something. So I was very interested. I was wondering, what are they doing? You know, what are they looking at? So I went closer. It was a store that sold caskets. A casket is where they put the dead body in it, right? So they were trying to figure out which one they wanted. I'm not kidding you. So I sort of very slowly walked a little closer to them, try and hear what they were talking about, right? And so the wife would say, I don't like the color of that one. And the husband said, oh, what's the difference in the color? You're going to be dead. She said, no, you don't know what you're talking about. You know, so they were arguing about which one. So, and what does the casket represent? It represents absolute attachment to the body. That's what it represents. That even after death, they're still attached to the body. So and you can, you know, caskets can go from a simple wooden one that's like really cheap, like maybe $50 or $100, to a very elaborate one that could cost $10,000 to $20,000. You know, a lot of padding so you know that your body doesn't get uncomfortable, right? Right? This is unbelievable, right? It's all about preserving the body even after death, right? Or protecting the body even after death. Well, it is a principle in Christianity and Judaism and Islam that you cannot be liberated at the final coming of either Jesus or the Messiah or the Mahdi, as they say in Islam, unless you have your dead body. So if you burn the dead body or throw it in the ocean, you're going to be denied liberation in the second coming of Jesus, or when the Messiah comes, or when the Mahdi comes. So you have to have at least the bones of the body, right? And then everyone is resurrected, and then there's a final judgment by Jesus or the Messiah or whatever. And some people go forever to hell, and some people go back to Jesus, wherever he is. Anyway, advancement of material vision or material civilization is a great stumbling block for spiritual advancement. Such material advancement entangles the living being in the bondage of a material body, followed by all sorts of material miseries. That's our situation right now. We're all suffering material miseries. You know, someone gets a cough, someone gets COVID, someone gets cancer, someone gets high blood pressure, someone has a heart attack. It's like two of our GBCs. Both of them had heart attacks recently. One had to get a stent replaced. The other one had to have I forget what the name is. This procedure. They put something in your leg in a vein, and it goes all the way up to your heart and opens up the passages. See? So, and these are devotees, so it can happen to anyone. It can happen to me also. It can happen to anyone. They're miseries of the body. Such material advancement is called anartha, or things not wanted. Actually, this is so. In the present context of material advancement, one uses lipstick at a cost of 50 cents. You can go to the five and dime store or the thrift store and buy cheap lipstick made in China for 50 cents or $1. You can definitely do it in India. In India, they always have the miniature size of the things, right? So you can get like a little lipstick like that in India, instead of the big ones that cost like, sometimes $100 or $200. So Prabhupada says, actually this is so in the present context of material advancement, one uses lipstick at a cost of 50 cents, and there are so many unwanted things which are all products of the material conception of life. By diverting attention to so many unwanted things, human energy is spoiled without achievement of spiritual realization. The prime necessity of human life, which is the prime necessity of human life, achieving self-realization. The attempt to reach the moon is another example of spoiling energy, because even if the moon is reached, the problems of life will not be solved. The devotees of the Lord are called akinshanas because they have practically no material assets. Such material assets are all products of the three modes of material nature. They foil or destroy spiritual energy, and thus, the less we possess such products of material nature, the more we have good chance for spiritual progress. Wow. The less we possess of material nature, and the less products we possess of material nature, the more we have a good chance for spiritual progress. The Supreme Personality of Godhead has no direct connection with material activities. All of his acts and deeds, which are exhibited even in this material world, are spiritual and without affection for the modes of material nature. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that all his acts, even his appearance and disappearance in and out of the material world, are transcendental, and one who knows this perfectly shall not take his birth again in this material world, but will go back to Godhead. So that's Janma karma chame divyam evam yo veti tatpata tyakpadeham punarjanma naitimam eti sarjana. That's the 4th chapter, 9th verse. That's a paraphrase of it. The material disease is due to hankering after and lording it over material nature. This hankering is due to an interaction of the three modes of nature, and neither the Lord nor the devotees have attachment for such false enjoyment. In other words, all of us are going to have this hankering. That's why we're here. We're hankering to lord it over material nature, to possess things and control them, people and things, and use them for our sense gratification. And Prabhupada explains this hankering, this desire to do that, is due to the interaction of the three modes of nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So someone in goodness, they'll give $5 to a bum with a sign, Vietnam vet, anything helps, God bless. So a person feels sorry, so let me give that guy $5. And then he goes to 7-Eleven and buys a bottle of beer. And then the person who gave the $5, they get 1/6 of the karmic reaction because he used the money for sense gratification rather than using it for something Krishna conscious. So it says, therefore the Lord and the devotees are called Nivrita Gunavritti. The perfect Nivrita Gunavritti is the Supreme Lord because he never becomes attracted by the modes of material nature, whereas the living beings have such a tendency. Some of them are entrapped by the illusory attraction of material nature. Well, yeah, today everyone is glorifying lust. You have to be very lusty in order to have a lot of sense gratification. And then some people, they glorify enviousness. So they're the ones that are breaking into stores and looting them and burning down buildings and standing on the corner and chanting, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, Black Lives Matter, and things like that. You have racism and counter-racism and reverse racism and all racism, on every level all based on the body. That means people are completely ignorant of the soul. One is not black, one is not white, one is not yellow, one is not green, one is not blue. Everyone has a pure, perfectly pure soul, but it becomes contaminated by the false ego, which comes under the control of the modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance. Because the Lord is the property of the devotees, and the devotees are the property of the Lord reciprocally, the devotees are certainly transcendental to the modes of material nature. That is what does this mean? Property. The Lord is the property of the devotees. Well, one time, this person from the Radharaman temple, he came to stay with me in France, in my house. And it was the first time he had been to Europe. He also asked me to take him to see Big Ben in London. Because, all Indians, they were under the British rule for several hundred years. So they used to think, that Britain is like, Vaikunta, right? So he comes and he says, "Can you please take me to see Big Ben?" And so we were in Paris. I said, "Okay, you really want to see it?" I said, it's nonsense, He said, no, I want to see it. I said, "Okay." So I drove him all the way across we had to go across the English Channel to England, and we went to see Big Ben. Okay. So anyway, but he was a genuine devotee. He was one of the leaders of the Radharaman temple. They were all descendants of Gopal Bhatta Goswami. They're blood descendants. And so every morning in my house, he would do his puja. It was very elaborate. And I would just sit there and watch him, and he would be saying all these mantras and offering 16 things to his picture of his deity, which is Radharaman deity. It's a miracle, this deity. It is one shalagram shila, perfectly sculpted. Now, if you get a shalagram shila, you even hit it too hard, it can crack very easily. And this was perfectly sculpted, and it's about this big. You can go to the temple, Radharaman temple, and see it. So it's a self-manifested deity. It has not been sculpted by anyone. It's a self-manifested deity, and it's a perfect, real shalagram shila. So anyway, he had a picture, and he was offering things to it. But he also had a picture of Lord Chaitanya that I had never seen before. An absolutely fabulous picture of the Lord. And there was a little white something in one corner of it. So one morning after the entire puja, he said to me, "Do you like this picture of Lord Chaitanya?" I said, "Yes, I've never seen one like this before." He said, "Yes, it's very special." He said, I'm a acharya, but actually, I don't really own anything. Everything I have actually belongs to Radharamanji. But there is one thing that I own. He said, "You see that little white spot on the picture?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "What is that?" He said, "That is the original piece of the chadar that Lord Chaitanya gave to Gopal Bhatta Goswami." He said, my grandfather gave it to me. He said, "I consider this the only possession I have." And so, therefore it says here, because the Lord is the property of the devotees, and the devotees are the property of the Lord reciprocally, the devotees are certainly transcendental to the modes of material nature. In other words, the devotee thinks, the only thing I actually have is my relationship with Krishna. That's it. Everything else I don't really have, because everything belongs to the Lord, including my body. I don't even have this body. It doesn't belong to me. And it says that the devotees are the property of the Lord reciprocally. So the Lord can do anything to the devotee. It's his choice, because he owns the body of the devotee. So he can preach through the body of the devotee, or he can destroy the body of the devotee. it belongs to him. He can do anything he wants with it. And the soul, well, the soul is part and parcel of Krishna. So it belongs to Krishna also. These are realizations that it takes many years to come to actually realize. You can read it, you can recite it, but actually act it is a different thing. So Prabhupada actually acted it. He came to America with 40 rupees, right? And not knowing, and not hardly knowing anybody. He only knew one person. And he didn't even stay with that person very long. He stayed with him a month and then he left. And just was completely at the mercy of Krishna. So, that is a natural conclusion. Such unalloyed devotees are distinct from mixed devotees who approach the Lord for mitigation of miseries and poverty or because of inquisitiveness and speculation. The unalloyed devotees of the Lord are transcendently attached to one another. For others, the Lord has nothing to reciprocate, and therefore he is called Atmaraman, self-satisfied. Self-satisfied as he is the master of all monists who seek to merge into the existence of the Lord. Such monists merge within the personal effulgence of the Lord, called the Brahmajyoti, but the devotees enter into the transcendental pastimes of the Lord, which are never to be misunderstood as material. Okay, so 1:8:27 is this amazing purport. So also in this purport it says that let's see. Yeah, I'm sorry. 1:10:32. I'm sorry. Let's go to 1:10:32. 1:10:32 says, let's see. It says that asuras are by nature envious of the Lord. This is a fact. And we explain, and in verse 16th chapter, 18th verse, explains it. But then in 1:18:22, let's take a look at that. That's the one I was actually looking for. 1:18:32 says, he says that it's about the boy Shringi, the son of the Brahmana, who cursed Maharaj Parikshit. He says, this boy was known as Shringi, and he achieved good training in brahmacharya by his father, so that he could be as powerful as a Brahmana, even at that age. But because the age of Kali was seeking an opportunity to spoil the cultural heritage of the four orders of life, the inexperienced boy gave a chance for the age of Kali to enter into the field of Vedic culture. Hatred of the lower orders of life began from this Brahmana boy, under the influence of Kali, and thus cultural life began to dwindle day after day. The first victim of Brahminical injustice was Maharaj Parikshit, and thus the protection given by the king against the onslaught of Kali was slackened. And this is an extremely important purport. And this is a fact that in India, the Brahmanas began to look down upon the lower classes of people. And that resulted in a big reaction where later on the lower classes took political control and then discriminated against the Brahmanas in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, and other places. And this all started by Shringi, who had good training as a brahmachari by his father, and he was powerful as a full-fledged brahmana, even at a very young age. But he became influenced by the personality of Kali, and it spoiled his whole cultural heritage. What is that cultural heritage? That is the Varnashram system of 4 orders of society that cooperate with each other to worship the Lord and to praise the Lord. And therefore, even though there are materially higher and lower castes, they all make spiritual progress and they all can go back to Godhead because they cooperate. Well, what happened was that the Brahmanas began to look down on the social orders, and they became attached to the advantages they had. So they changed one word of the Shastra. Chaturvanyam Mayasristam Guna Karma Vibhagasaha. So they changed the word guna to janma and created the false caste system and created this enmity. So even up to today, like for example, if you read the history of Ramanujacharya, his wife was one of these type of brahmanas. And Ramanujacharya accepted 2 of his 5 gurus. He had 4 Shiksha gurus and 1 initiating guru. 2 of them were born Sudras. So one day one of them came to see Ramanujacharya. He wasn't home. And the wife received him and had him sit down. And eventually she offered him some food also, some prasad. And then he left. And then what did she do? Whatever remnants there were of that prasadam, she threw it away. So when Ramanujacharya came, and he found out that one of his Siksha gurus had come to see him, and that she had given him prasadam, he said, "Oh, can I have some of his prasadam?" She says, "No, of course not. I threw it away." He said, "What? You threw it away? He's my guru." He said, "He's a Sudra." "What do you mean he's your guru?" "He's a Sudra." So this really was very discouraging for Ramanujacharya, and eventually it led to him leaving his wife, because it was a very insulting thing to do, because she is exactly what's being described here. Hatred of the lower orders of life began from this Brahmana boy under the influence of Kali, and thus cultural life began to dwindle day by after day. The first victim of Brahminical injustice was Maharaj Parikshit, and thus the protection given by the king against the onslaught of Kali was slackened. In other words, when the Varnashram system is functioning very well, all 4 orders make tangible spiritual progress and eventually can go back to Godhead. There's no room for Kali, because the personality of Kali, it doesn't mean Kali Mata or Durga Mata. It's a male personality, but he has no room to penetrate the minds of people when the Varnashram system is functioning properly. It's only when he was able to influence Shringi that the whole deterioration of Brahminical culture and the caste system began. And today we have a travesty of so-called Hindu caste system. It's nonsense. It's based on birth, where originally it was based on quality, not birth. Okay, so, but this is based on envy, because the Brahmanas did 2 things. One, they changed that one word. Why did they do that? So that they could pass on generation after generation all their assets, or all their special, let's say, perks that they had as Brahmanas. So, therefore, there was a material aspect to the whole reason of changing that word. And as soon as a person wants to make a profit, so this profit incentive destroys the ability to engage in Krishna consciousness or in transcendental life. So this is further explained in verse, let's see, 22. Okay. And in 1:18:22, it says, "Only the self-control can gradually be attached to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Self-controlled means not indulging in sense enjoyment more than is necessary. And those who are not self-controlled are given over to sense enjoyment. Dry philosophical speculation is a subtle sense enjoyment of the mind. Sense enjoyment leads one to the path of darkness. Those who are self-controlled can make progress on the path of liberation from the conditional life of material existence. The Vedas therefore enjoin that one should not go on the path of darkness, but should make a progressive march toward the path of light or liberation. Self-control is actually achieved not by artificially stopping the senses from material enjoyment, which is what the Mayavadis do, but by becoming factually attached to the Supreme Lord by engaging one's unalloyed senses in the transcendental service of the Lord. The senses cannot be forcibly curbed, but they can be given proper engagement. Purified senses, therefore, are always engaged in the transcendental service of the Lord. This perfectional stage of sense enjoyment is called Bhakti Yoga. So those who are attached to the means of Bhakti Yoga are factually self-controlled and can all of a sudden give up their homely or bodily attachment for the service of the Lord. This is called Paramahansa stage. Hamsas, or swans, accept only milk out of a mixture of milk and water. Similarly, those who accept the service of the Lord instead of Maya's service are called the Paramahansas. They are naturally qualified with all the good attributes such as pridelessness, freedom from vanity, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, respectability, worship, devotion, and sincerity. All these godly qualities exist in the devotee of the Lord spontaneously. Such Paramahansas who are completely given up to the service of the Lord are very rare. They are very rare even amongst the liberated souls. See, that's what we were saying before. One can be liberated from the influence and modes of material nature and still not be a Paramahansa. To come to the Paramahansa stage, one has to be fully engaged in Krishna consciousness. But a perfect Paramahansa, being completely given up to the service of the Lord, is perfectly non-envious. He loves every living being in relation with the Supreme Lord. Real renunciation means perfect dependence on God. Every living being is dependent on someone else because he is so made. Actually, everyone is dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord, but when one forgets his relation with the Lord, he becomes dependent on the conditions of material nature. Renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the conditions of material nature and thus becoming completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. So the example of being dependent on what it says, the conditions of material nature, like for example, in the 1928 collapse of the stock market in the United States, many stockbrokers jumped out of windows of the high-rise skyscrapers in New York and committed suicide. So why would a person commit suicide, jumping out a window and falling, let's say, 40 levels and crashing down on the earth, breaking all their bones and bleeding to death on the sidewalk? Because they were completely dependent on the conditions of material nature. So when there was a stock sell-off and people lost hundreds of millions of dollars overnight, they thought their life was finished. So they opened the window and jumped out. This happened again in 2008, where stockbrokers jumped out of windows like they did in 1928. It happened in 2008 when there was the stock market crash. So when a person is dependent on material nature, if everything they've collected is suddenly reduced to zero, they commit suicide. There's another example of that. There was this one Andhra Pradeshi called Raja Ram, and he graduated from IIT in, I think, in Bombay, and it's very, one of the best schools in the world. And he moved to England and he became a stockbroker. And he had a portfolio about 2 or 3 million British pounds. He decided that he should move to the United States and make more money. So he moves to the United States, I think to Sacramento, with his wife and 2 kids. And now his portfolio went up from from pounds to $4 to $6 million. Right? So he had the nice house, the nice car, and nice clothes, and everything was going good. And because in the United States you can buy on margin, that means that you can buy stocks. You don't have to put up all the money. You only have to put up 5%. And as long as the stocks keep going up, you're making money by using other people's money, right? So he was buying everything on margin, and everything was going good. The stock market kept going up, 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 up. And all of a sudden it collapses in 2008. And all of a sudden, instead of being up $6 million, he's down $1 million because he bought so many stocks on margin. And then when the stock goes down, the stockbroker calls you up. So you got a call on Friday late afternoon from a stockbroker. He says, Monday, 9 o'clock, I want you to pay up. And if you don't pay up, then you're liquidated completely and in debt. And then, so that was so humiliating for him that he did an honor killing. He killed his wife and his 2 kids, and then he killed himself. Now, I challenge you to see anything honorable in doing that. Obviously, it's not. He called it. He wrote some suicide note saying that there's an honorable killing. Right. Now, because he had no relationship to God, no relationship to Krishna, although he was born in Andhra, right? And his whole dependency was on material nature or material things. And when he lost everything, he thought his life was over. So why did he kill his wife and kids? Why didn't he just go back to India and start over again? He could have borrowed some money from relatives or friends, gone back to India and start all over again. No, he thought his life was over because he had no relationship with God. This is how dangerous it is. When you have complete dependency on material people and material possessions, these things are temporary. They can be lost at any time. So it says here, actually, everyone is dependent on the mercy of the Supreme Lord, but when one forgets his relation with the Lord, he becomes dependent on the conditions of material nature. Renunciation means renouncing one's dependence on the conditions of material nature and thus becoming completely dependent on the mercy of the Lord. Real independence means complete faith in the mercy of the Lord without dependence on the conditions of matter. This Paramahansa stage is the highest perfectional stage in Bhakti Yoga, the process of devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So what's explained here, there's several points that are very important. One is that a devotee is non-envious because he sees everyone equally, and he sees himself as the servant. He is Das, and everyone else is Prabhu for him. So, right in the beginning of the Bhagavatam, first canto, first chapter, second verse, it says, Dharma prochita kaitravo tra. So, the devotee is nirmatsaranam satam. It says that he has no enviousness. But everyone in this competitive material life is envious. Like, for example, anyone that works in Microsoft, they can tell you, probably, is there envy in Microsoft between co-workers? Yeah, they're all competing with each other, even though they're in the same company. Right? They should be working for the interest of the company, but many times they're working for their own interests, and it causes disloyal competition within the company, and it can be very detrimental for the company itself. So this is the nature. So therefore, It says, Nirmatsaranam Satam, that means that the devotee is of the 100% pure in heart. That's the nature of the devotee. He has no envy, no hatred for anyone because of his love for Krishna and understanding that everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. So therefore, we're all in the same family, we're all in the same vote, in a sense. So, this should be thought about very carefully. So there's one verse today that, O Narada, the evacuating outlet of the universal form of the Lord is the abode of the controlling deity of death. So it's talking about the anus of the universal form, right? Mitra. And the evacuating hole and the rectum of the Lord is the place of envy, misfortune, death, and hell. So we have to be extremely careful. And this, like, very, very vicious competition that takes place in material life, it's called the struggle for existence. And you can see it like on the farm, we see it. Like the bugs are trying to eat the crops. The rabbits are trying to eat the crops. The rats are trying to eat the crops. The snakes are trying to eat the rats, and who eat the crops, or the other little tiny animals that are trying to eat the crops. So we see this competition on all levels, right? And then the moths and the butterflies are trying to eat the crops, and then the aphids are trying to eat the crops, and this thing and that thing. So there's competition on every level in the material world, and it's very, very confusing for people. However, a devotee does not engage in that competition. That's a big, big issue, and we'll talk about that tomorrow. Are there any questions? Is a man. He what? He what? You mean Maharaj Pariksit is about to kill Kali? Yes. Why did he not kill Kali? Yes. Because Kali surrendered to him. I know, but see, a devotee like Maharaj Pariksit is always merciful. So if Kali did not surrender to him, he would have killed him. But he surrendered to him and begged for his mercy. And he said that, look, you have to give me some place to stay. I can't, there's nowhere in your kingdom where I can stay because everyone's following Krishna consciousness. But give me some place to stay. And he surrendered to him. So he said, okay, you can stay in that place where people hoard gold. Yeah, well, one thing leads to the other. So when a person is hoarding gold, then they'll eat meat, they'll engage in illicit activities, they will speculate, and they will intoxicate. So, like for example, when you go to a casino, what are the four things going on in the casino? Meat eating, gambling, illicit activities, and intoxication. Right? Because they're hoarding gold there, right? And they tell people, you come and we'll give you $100 free chips, free money, and you'll get free food, and you can see all the shows for free. So all the dummies, they go thinking, oh, I'm going to get the money, I might get a free room, and vacation for free, and then they go in and they spend some money on liquor, they spend some money on gambling, they spend some money on eating meat, you see. So that's what a casino is. Because why are people attracted to the casino? Because of the money. The prospect of winning money simply by gambling. So as soon as you You break one principle, you'll end up breaking all the principles. So wherever people are hoarding gold, their Kali becomes active, very active. Okay? Well, it depends. You want to be Kali's man or Krishna's man? No, you're supposed to have, no, if you're married, you're supposed to have some savings in case of an emergency. So this was explained, it's explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita, in the life of Sanatan and Rupa Goswami. Both of them were very rich. So, when they decided to renounce being, members of the government, the highest positions of government in Bengal, they did the following. They gave 50% of everything they had to Vaishnavas. They gave 25% to their family members. And 25% they kept in case of an emergency. So this is what a Grihastha should do, according to Shastra. And then when the Grihastha completely renounces, becomes sannyasi, then they go with nothing. Like Prabhupada, 40 rupees in his pocket on a free trip on a merchant ship coming to America to preach. He completely depended on mercy of Krishna. And that's what we did too. And when I joined the movement, I had to give everything I had to the movement. And the only thing I had was a bead bag and one dhoti. Right? And we would go out every day, either chanting or collecting money and bringing it always back to the temple. And we didn't keep anything. If we needed something, we had to ask the temple president. And then I was sent to open a temple in Paris with nothing. They didn't give me money. There's no like, oh, we have this fund. We can fund you for 1 year to open a temple. No, we had nothing. We had to do everything beginning from scratch. And we did. And we were able to open a temple. And then eventually it developed. Based on preaching, not based on investing this or money oriented. It was based on preaching. See? So, as a Grihastha, you're not expected to give everything up. You have to have 25% for emergencies, 25% for family needs, and 50% you're supposed to give to the temple. Now, not every Grihastha does that, but that's what the rule is. Okay, we'll stop there. Hare Krishna. You chant. gati, aise uttama gati. Ye pasade pure sarva asa. Ye pasade pure sarva asa. Chakshudana dilaje janme janme Prabhu se. Divya Gyani de Prokasido. Prema Bhakti Jahawate Avidya Vinasajate. Vedegaya Janara Charito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adana Janara Bandhu. Jai Janara Charito. Aha Prabhu Kora Doya Deya More Padachaya. Aha Prabhu Kora Doya Deya More Padachaya. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Deve Goravani Pracharine Irise Sasunyavadi Pasyata Desatarine. Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Yadvaita Gadadhar Shivasudi Gaur Vagdavir Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahansa Pararajikachasta, Shimad, His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki, Anantakoti Vaishnava Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Prem Sikahosha Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Dvaita Gadadhar, Shivasadi Gaura Bhakti Ki, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samakund Radha Kunda Giri Udani Ki, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki, Shri Mayapur Dham Ki, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki, Tavasi Devi Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Ganga Maya Ki, Jamuna Maya Ki, Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki, Harinam Sankirtan Ki, Nitai Gaura Vrindavan. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to some of the words, all glories to Shikara and Shikara, all glories to Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Lotus Feet of our spiritual master, the only way by which we can attain the pure devotional service. I bow down to his lotus feet with great awe and reverence. By his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection and fulfills all desires. He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental light. He is my Lord.